Hey darlings. The usual Friday atmosphere reigned in the trading office. The weekend was approaching for the employees, and the favorable weather outside whispered in their ears that the time for picnics and outdoor recreation had arrived. And only a young cleaning lady named Vera had no peace. "Pavlova, go clean the steps. Yes, and don't forget the salon. Otherwise, I'll be embarrassed in front of clients," was heard from a corner. "Yes, now, Irina Konstantinovna," replied Vera, and taking a bucket and a mop, she hurried to fulfill the order of the head of the department. "And if you don't fulfill it, you will regret it so vividly." And on the same day, so to speak, without leaving the cash register, he will make a note in his notebook and, on payment day, deduct the amount required as a fine for poor work. And just try to be outraged. Soon the sky will seem as big as a sheepskin. But Vera couldn't lose money. A sick mother and her son Mishenka were waiting at home. Kind and good boy. The second series is ending. He's already engaged. For her son's sake, Vera was ready to do anything. Endure the harassment from her superiors and endure her own unstable life. It turns out that Misha's father abandoned Vera in the 3rd month of pregnancy, when the failed mother-in-law Anna Lvovna suddenly expressed suspicions that her daughter-in-law did not become pregnant with her child. How is this not from Vitya? And whose then? We've been dating for almost a year. Do you really think I'm capable of so much evil? Vera asked, holding back her tears with difficulty. The mother-in-law frowned. Able, incapable. Should I now guess from the tea leaves, or what? I don't believe you, Verka. I'm your mother. I remember school. She always had problems. What does my mother have to do with this? Well, what does that have to do with it? Aspen trees will not produce oranges. Have you heard of this, dear? So what are you doing? Don't rush into marriage. Here, you will give birth. Vitka will do a DNA test. Then we will have a wedding. In the meantime, live like this. Anna Lvovna's proposal seemed so wild that Vera felt uncomfortable. And Vitya is also good. He modestly stepped aside, leaving his mother to decide his fate. Vera did not insist on marriage and accepted everything as it was. Her mother-in-law and her fiancé don't believe her. Well, it's their right, and life itself will put everything in its place. Ah, if Vera could only know what mistake she was making. Less than a month has passed since Victor left her, and he did it under a plausible pretext, going to work. The Varnin family could not be called rich. No way. More likely, a family with an average income. A house, a dacha, some shopping kiosks in the center, and a car. And why then did Vita have to work? Vera didn't notice at first. I kept thinking that the groom had gone to earn some money to buy diapers, t-shirts, discharge from maternity, and the wedding. The one that comes with the same white dress, a cozy ceremony at the registry office, and a modest celebration at the end. Vera waited, but Victor still didn't return and didn't answer calls. The belly grew. The intoxication intensified, but the groom had nothing to do with it. Vera's mother, Olga Nikolaevna, moved to a wheelchair after her second stroke. So how could she help her daughter? Almost nothing except emotional support. It's just the way life works that daughters are more attracted to their mothers. Maybe because only a woman can understand a woman. Nothing, Verachka. Just don't worry. Your Vitya will return. If he doesn't come back, we'll raise the child ourselves. You can't even imagine what a gift you gave me, said Olga Nikolaevna. Well, Mom, what kind of gift is this? It just caused problems. Olga Nikolaevna, sorry you. What are you doing, daughter? All this time I was afraid of not seeing my grandchildren. You took a while to see me, dear. And now, the soul is calm. I'll have time to find out. As Vera never saw a boyfriend, she raised her son alone, or rather, together with her mother, to be more precise. At first, the neighbors laughed at her, considering her a naive fool. It's no joke. It's as simple as that, I gave up on everything, both for DNA testing and for possible alimony if paternity is confirmed. But then, they got used to it and stopped paying attention to a lonely woman with a child. Misha grew up as an obedient and kind boy. In kindergarten, the teachers were crazy about him, but at school everything ended up being a little more complicated. And if in the first grade Misha studied reasonably, in the second he dropped to grade C, Vera couldn't understand why. It seems that the grandmother is a former teacher. She should make her grandson a leader. But shoemaker without boots, as they say. Olga Nikolaevna herself suspected that Misha was being bullied at school not because of poor performance, rather, because of poverty. Social inequality is always evident. Look, Misha is wearing an old sweater and pants 2 sizes too big. Many parents of school-age children reproached Vera for spending her children's allowance only on herself. But it wasn't like that at all. The Pavlovs' family budget was literally bursting at the seams. The apartment is old, in a 2-story building built in the early 50s. The floor is made of wood and there are cracks everywhere in the house. Also, the roof leaks from time to time. So the poor family lived in fear from one rain to the next. It's easier in winter. Snow covers the entire roof, like a hat, and in spring it's a complete disaster. In general, Vera's apartment and the house itself have been in need of renovation for a long time. How to renovate roofs, replace windows, and insulate walls. For Vera, repairs were the most painful issue. She thought about him constantly, especially in bad weather, when the mother's bones were twisted by rain or storm. And now, deftly wielding a mop, Vera looked longingly out the window. And what the meteorologists predicted today. It seems that the sun is shining outside the window and the wind is spreading clouds across the sky. Dark, rainy. Wow, it's going to rain today. And for you, Pavlova, there will be more work again, said Irina Konstantinovna, smiling. Vera sighed sadly, but didn't respond. She always had a lot of work, and the precipitation outside had nothing to do with it. But Irina Konstantinovna clearly did not want to calm down, so she soon commented, "Yes, I almost forgot, Verka. There it is. Alexander Vladimirovich asked you to come in? My? But why?" The boss looked at the cleaning lady ironically. "How I know? Come on, go. Don't make the director wait and tell me twice. Or should I scold him to speed things up?" "No, there's no need. I'll be there now, Irina Konstantinovna," replied Vera, taking off her headscarf as she walked. She practically did not come across the company's director, the young businessman Alexander Vladimirovich Zaretsky. And this was in no way explained by the fact that Vera was a cleaner and he was a director. The thing is that Alexander had his own separate entrance to the company building. Thus, he could enter and leave the building almost unnoticed and without disturbing the company's employees. But when she saw the director, Vera always blushed to the roots of her hair. There are men like that, handsome, polite, calm, and immediately composed herself. "Yes, but not for your honor." Before entering the director's office, Vera took a deep breath and knocked on the door silently. "Come in." The manager's voice was heard from behind the door. Vera, with her heart racing, entered the office where Alexander Vladimirovich was sitting, deeply reading working documents. Looking up from his papers, he said,
"Ah, Pavlova."
"Come in. Sit down. I have a talk with you." Vera sat obediently on the edge of her chair, waiting for the director to get straight to the point. Alexander Vladimirovich was just over 30 years old, but the first gray hairs had already touched his temples. It was rumored that he would go through many difficult times in his life. After hesitating a bit, the director moved on to the main topic. "Listen, Vera, that's it. I don't know how to say it. In general, my son is in first grade, and today there is a matinee. Well, you understand how important this is to him and everything. In general, Could you come to the holiday and congratulate Serioza on my behalf? The director's words sounded so strange that Vera was confused and looked into his eyes with surprise. But I'm not related to you. So what's that like? What will people think? Vera, I understand, smiled Alexander Vladimirovich. But for this, I have something that Serioza recently asked me to buy. Look, it's a radio-controlled car. I'll put it in a bag, and you give it to me after the matinee. I would go myself, but I can't. See, negotiations are coming up, and you can't leave the office for a minute.
Vera nodded understandingly.
Okay, Alexander Vladimirovich. Of course, I will do everything that depends on me. Only you warn Irina Konstantinovna so that she does not give me absenteeism. The director waved his hands in protest. Don't be afraid, Vera. You can walk calmly. Consider that today you have a shortened working day. Until you get there, going back and forth, understand, I have no one else to send from the office. See, my son is adopted. When I took him from the orphanage, he was holding a picture of his mother in his hands. She looked a lot like you. Yes, and you are a good and calm person, and I also know that you also have a son, so you know how to communicate with boys. These are the things. In general, I'll write you the address. If you want, can I call a taxi, or can you go there yourself? You have a lot of time. Vera smiled and, nodding, took the gift for her son from the director's hands. The woman's mood has noticeably improved, because today she will no longer have to wave a mop in a hateful office where everyone is trying to pry and poke you. Why are you smiling like a May Rose? Did you receive a bonus or promotion? Asked Irina Konstantinovna, looking at the cleaning lady. No, they just gave me an order, Vera replied evasively. She did not want to tell her boss the details, and in general, any communication with Irina Konstantinovna carried complete negativity. She loved to give a nasty speech that would leave a bad taste in anyone's soul. Are you talking about an order? Well, come on. Go ahead with your mission. What's in your package? Vera fearfully pressed Alexander Vladimirovich's gift to her chest and covered it with her hands.
Okay, go.
She organized the secrets of the Madrid court here. Irina spoke slowly with feigned indifference, but as soon as Vera got dressed, she immediately called the cleaning lady with her finger and said, "Be kind, before you go, water the flowers at the security point." Fine? Yes, throw your pack and bag too. Let's go quickly, because I realized I won't see you here today. Come on, move. Vera pursed her lips gently and sighed. Well, here. She couldn't even leave quietly today. Irina Konstantinovna immediately tried to put a spoke in her subordinate's wheels to make his life even worse. Fortunately, Vera watered the flowers quickly, and in general the soil in them was damp, and in fact this could not have been done. The woman did not need to return to the office, as Irina Konstantinovna personally went down to the security checkpoint and handed her the package along with her bag. She probably looked inside, Vera thought ironically, and, after saying goodbye, quickly headed towards the exit. And the street was in full swing with its own spring life. People ran back and forth, solving urgent problems of the day, or simply walked, enjoying the spring warmth. Some were heading home from a night shift, some were getting ready for their lunch break, and some were simply enjoying a day off with a flexible schedule. Couples in love kissed on the benches, elderly women fed breadcrumbs to the pigeons, and an elderly caretaker shushed them and playfully scolded them for littering. Vera decided to get to the right place by bus, as it was inconvenient for her to walk. That morning, she rubbed a callus with her new shoes, which was raw and bleeding. Vera bought these shoes at a sale and suspected that they were on retail sale for a reason, as something about their tailoring was incorrect, which caused them to put a lot of pressure and rub against her feet. But Vera was quite satisfied with the price, which means she put up with this temporary inconvenience, which over time would go away on its own along with the delivery of the shoes. Arriving at the bus stop, Vera thought. But still, why did Alexander Vladimirovich ask me to go to the matinee? Couldn't he find someone else to go to his son's matinee? Soon the bus arrived and people, excited with anticipation, began to chat happily. Vera was one of the last to board the bus, leaving the elderly and the pregnant woman to go ahead. She was generally able to drive standing up, as making a few stops was not a big problem for her. Preparing to pay for the ticket, Vera grabbed her purse, which contained her old, beat-up wallet. But when the woman opened it, a surprise waited inside. The problem is that the wallet was empty. Instead, it contained a single large note. At the same time, Vera could swear that in the morning there was still some change left, because before work she managed to run to the store and buy something for her son for a snack at school. Did I really spend it all? No, that cannot be. There should have been some more money left there. And where did I get that big bill? The girl even shook her head in disbelief. The conductor, with a characteristic tone of dissatisfaction in her voice, asked, "Are you going to pay the ticket, ma'am?" Vera looked at her with a confused look and then showed a bill of great value in her hands. "I will, of course. Do you have any change?" The maestro raised an eyebrow in surprise. "Well, you give, my dear. Where can I get you so much money? Do you think we have a mobile bank branch on wheels here? No, I won't have any change to give you, so wait a few stops. Maybe I'll have some change. And one more thing. There's some kind of inscription on the back. This can only be put back in a vase. It's damaged, apparently." Vera nodded shyly and put the bill back in her wallet. And how did she get there, anyway? Meanwhile, the regent presented her version of what was happening. "That's a good idea, my dear. You're probably driving around town with that big bill on purpose. You know we won't have change, but I remembered you. So if you decide to do this trick again, you will have to deal with the police. We're strict about this, ma'am." Vera's lips trembled treacherously. "What does that have to do with it? I don't really have any other money with me. Also, I don't know how this account ended up in my wallet." "You don't know, you say? Okay. I wish I could be as happy as you. I woke up and there was the 5,000th lying there. I closed my eyes and the second one appeared." "Well, you're a storyteller, of course." Vera's mood visibly worsened. What does all this mean? The change disappeared. The bill appeared. Everything was strange and alarming. Fortunately, she didn't have to go far. Vera left through the back door and walked along the sidewalk towards the school where Alexander Vladimirovich's son Seryoza studied. At the same time, Vera was still haunted by the feeling of unreality of what was happening. And near the school there was already a crowd of excited parents eager to see their children perform as soon as possible. Many of the children were dressed in festive clothing in all kinds of costumes, from pirates to foxes, wolf cubs, and bear cubs. Seeing that crowd chattering happily, Vera smiled. Still, it's good that she agreed to go to this matinee. You look, and your soul sings, and your legs ask to dance. Deep down, every mother considers her child to be the best and most talented and dreams of seeing her son or daughter perform on stage. Joining other parents, Vera entered the school building with them, where the principal helpfully led the guests to the ballroom, where the event actually took place. Vera recognized Seryoza Zaretsky almost immediately, as she saw a photograph with the director's son in his office. No, this did not mean at all that Vera was overly curious and stuck her nose into other people's affairs. No way. It turns out that if you clean your boss's workplace every day, you will inevitably begin to study the interior and everything that surrounds it. There was only one free seat in the last row. The show turned out to be extremely interesting. The children read poetry, danced, and showed funny numbers. Parents applauded, asked to repeat the number for an encore, and gave their children gifts. It was painful for Vera to see Sergei anxiously looking for his father in the corridor. Well, who else could he be looking for? But his father, a businessman, didn't find time to go to his son's matinee. Vera had no intention of condemning him and had no right to do so. Business is serious business, and it is not always possible to find free time. Finally, when the matinee ended and parents and children began to go out into the street, Vera approached Serioza, introduced herself, and handed him a package with a typewriter inside. "Look, this is a gift from Daddy to you. He asked me to deliver it personally." Serioza raised his eyes and looked with interest at the woman he did not know. "Thank you very much, Aunt Vera. Why didn't Dad come in person? I was waiting for him so much." Vera shook her head sadly. "Sorry, Serioza, but Dad has no time at all. We have important negotiations today. Serious people are coming." So, he couldn't free himself. Tears glistened in the boy's eyes. Taking the box with the typewriter that his father gave him, he hugged it to his chest and smiled at Vera with gratitude. "Thank you very much. I dreamed about her for a long time. But what should I do now? The matinee is over, so I have to sit alone at school? Wait for Dad to free himself and take me home?" Vera looked at the boy with pity. She did not have Alexander Vladimirovich's work phone number. He did not give the girl any instructions about this, and the cleaning lady didn't want to distract her boss again. Mentally weighing all the pros and cons, she suggested, "Listen, let me pick you up from school. If you want, I can take you to the office, but if not, show me where you live, and I'll take you home." Serioza smiled. "Come on, Aunt Ver. I agree. I like this. Otherwise, the last time I waited for my father for 3 whole hours. Everyone had already left and I was sitting at the entrance with the watchman." Vera's heart sank. It's hard for a boy without a mother. And also, he somehow resembled her, Mashenka, who, although she was a few years older, was the same fair-haired, thin and with mischievous little devils in her eyes. "Okay, let's go, just on foot. The weather looks tolerable, and there is still no rain in the forecast." "I can't pay for the bus," said Vera and took the boy by the hand. And at this very moment, a completely uncomfortable atmosphere reigned in Alexander Vladimirovich's office. The point is that the director was diligently looking for something, turning everything upside down and from time to time swearing about it. Hearing noise in the boss's office, Irina Konstantinovna looked into the director's office and asked, "Alexander Vladimirovich, did something happen to you? Can I help you?" The man shook his head. "How can you help me here, Ira? I have something missing here. The note is of great value, but it is not the size that matters. How would it be more accurate to say this to you? In general, she is happy for me, well, like a talisman. I never change it, and have kept it for many years. It belonged to my father, but today it disappeared." Irina Konstantinovna raised her eyebrow in surprise. "So she disappeared, or someone took her? So who came into your office from strangers?" "I was, of course, but I hope you don't think I accepted that account." Alexander waved his hand. "No, what are you talking about? It seems to me that she fell somewhere. Maybe a draft threw her to the ground. I don't know. There has never been any theft at my company." "It wasn't, you say?" "Well, maybe it wasn't. But I think that a personal search for things today will definitely not do us any harm. Besides, if you say that the bill is noticeable," said Irina with a mysterious look. "Noticeable. There is also an inscription on the back made in pen. My late father signed it for me. He said she would make me happy. Like, this is where my wealth will start. It looks like a talisman or a talisman." Irina no longer heard the boss's last words, as she closed the door and began checking the employees' personal belongings. The employees were shocked, but they handed over the bags without objection and no one felt guilty. The boss did this more formally than truthfully. "I didn't look in wallets or rummage through bags much. In fact, Irina was waiting for Vera to return, who was supposed to appear any minute." Soon Vera entered the office, although not alone, but with the director's son. "Thank you, Aunt Ver." "Well, okay. I'll talk to Dad," said the boy and ran as fast as he could to the principal's office. Irina Konstantinovna looked at Vera with a mocking look and said, "Well, Verachka, while you were away, so to speak, we had an emergency here. The money is gone. So go ahead, empty the contents of your bag. And don't forget your wallet." Vera turned pale. "Money? What other money? I haven't heard anything like that." The boss frowned. "Well, like what, Common?" "A large note with an inscription visible on the back, made by Alexander Vladimirovich's father. So come on, don't stop me with your talk." Vera choked, reached into her wallet and, with a trembling hand, took out this same note. "Well, I don't know how, but today it ended up in my wallet. Who planted this in me and why, I don't know. Here, take it." "I didn't get it, seriously?" Irina Konstantinovna smiled triumphantly. "So that's it, Alexander Vladimirovich? Come here quickly. We found the thief. And who knew? Verka is our debugger." A minute later, Alexander Vladimirovich and his son went out into the hall and saw Vera in confusion. Tears ran down the woman's face, which brought her no relief. Trying to prove her innocence, Vera babbled about how strange it was that the note was in her wallet, and even on the bus they refused to accept a note with the inscription on it. But Irina Konstantinova kept talking and talking, insisting that it was Vera who committed the robbery. Perhaps, if Alexander had not been so worried about the upcoming negotiations, he would have paid more attention to this matter. And as he was short of time, he looked at Vera with a cold look and said, "Well, Pavlova, I think after this we need to part with you. You are fired. I have nothing more to tell you. I never forgive anyone for stealing from my office. But how can that be? I didn't get this account. Wait, I'll explain everything to you now," begged the young cleaning lady. But Alexander had already returned to his office, where he began to prepare for negotiations. The little son trotted obediently after him, promising to keep quiet and not disturb his father. Irina Konstantinovna looked at Vera and said, "Good. You have achieved your goal. That's it. Let's get out of here. In our team your work is done. Yes, and one more thing. You can't count on a salary. I gave you a ticket for dishonesty and theft." Vera turned pale and, still crying, walked towards the exit. This morning everything started so ordinary, but now it has turned into a real drama. Vera didn't know what she would say to the sick mother and son at home, who anxiously awaited her return from duty every day. Irina, on the other hand, looked at the cleaning lady and smiled smugly. At this very moment, Alexander Vladimirovich Zaretsky had just begun negotiations with partners who came to discuss the supply of scarce building materials. All this time, Seryoza sat calmly in a corner and listened to sophisticated words, the meaning of which was unfamiliar to him. Once upon a time there was a businessman, just like him, sitting in his father's office, which he left as an inheritance. This very company and a lucky note, which became the beginning of his triumphant rise to the heights of the financial Olympus. Usually, Alexander translated business negotiations masterfully, but today something clearly didn't work out. Apparently the failure was caused by the events that occurred with the robbery of his office. Still, the businessman couldn't figure out how this sweet and decent girl managed to steal. Money? And what did she hope for in the future? Alexander was never able to answer this question. There was something about this situation that was alarming. Negotiations were already coming to an end when one of Alexander's partners commented, "Listen, Sash, this is your deputy. What is her name? Irina Konstantinovna? Doesn't she have a sister?" Alexander raised an eyebrow in surprise. "Apparently not. But what? In general, it's this. I saw this Ira a week ago in Safronov's office, by the way. He still has a grudge against you and your company. It's true that this person over there was blonde, but here her hair is dark. But if you put a wig on her, she could easily pass for a twin." Alexander shook his head in disbelief. Well, what does it all mean? The partner smiled. Well, what do you mean, Sash? You look like a little boy. But doesn't she work on two fronts? This Ira is too smart. She understands everything, sticks her nose everywhere. You should take a closer look at her, okay? Otherwise, as soon as I heard her voice, I recognized her immediately. Appearances can be deceiving, but the voice, you can't fake it. At this moment, Alexander remembered a story from a week ago, when Irina Konstantinovna, due to illness, was absent from the workplace for about 5 days. The fact is that throughout her supposed illness, Irina did not answer the phone, citing a high fever and severe chills, which prevented her from speaking. And then it turns out that all this time she was in her competitor's office, wearing a wig and makeup on her face? Thank you, Dim, for your valuable advice. I think I will be able to resolve this issue in the near future, said Alexander, already saying goodbye to the representatives of the partner company. Of course, he didn't directly ask Irina about the incident. Instead, the businessman decided to watch the CCTV cameras to find out who exactly stole the lucky note from his desk. But when Alexander tried to do this, it turned out that all the cameras in the office had not worked for several days. Irina Konstantinovna suggested that the mice chewed through the cable, depriving the device of the necessary power supply. Alexander shook his head. It's all strange. The rats are chewing on the cables. The money is gone. Okay, everything's the same. Vera came home from work crying. Olga Nikolaevna, seeing her daughter in that state, drove up to her in a wheelchair and tried to hug her. Little Misha, looking out of his room, gasped in fear. He saw his mother like this only once, when she was called to a parent-teacher meeting, where the teacher scolded his mother for not being able to hand over money for repairs. But today there was definitely no meeting, and Misha knew this like no one else. They fired me, Mother. Just like that. They hired me and fired me. And they called me a thief, said Vera, sitting down in a chair. Olga Nikolaevna shook her head sympathetically. Nothing, darling, nothing. It will grind. These rich people only think about robbing honest people. I think you should go to school to work, as a technician or as a kitchen assistant in a canteen. This way you can take care of Misha and there will be no one to offend you. In these offices, although salaries are higher, there are still problems everywhere. The rich have completely stopped considering workers as people. Vera sobbed softly, but did not respond to her mother. In general, she did not bear a grudge against Alexander. What should the principal have thought if the stolen note was found in her bag? Although Irina Konstantinovna clearly knew much more than she said. She was holding Vera's bag in her hands. But why did she need all this? There was no response. 3 days passed. Vera was already used to the idea of being fired and was diligently looking for a job. In turn, Alexander Vladimirovich Zaretsky also did not sit still and therefore decided to check the words of his companion Dmitri. To do this, he dressed in simpler clothes, put on a mustache and thick horn-rimmed glasses. Then, trying to add a little roundness to her toned figure, she stretched out her belly and looked at herself in the mirror with satisfaction. Well, my own mother won't recognize me in this image, thought the businessman, and went to the lair of his competitors, to Safronov's office. And he went there, not by chance, since Irina Konstantinovna again took a day off due to health problems. Something told the businessman that she was definitely not home at the moment and, with access to all of her company's documents, could cause significant damage. Entering the hall of the Astra Invest Company, Alexander almost fainted. At the very first table sat none other than Irina Konstantinovna, however, with a striking blonde wig and very bright makeup, which she did not allow herself within the walls of her company. So that's what it's all about. Diligently moving the soles of his shoes to avoid lameness, Alexander approached and asked, "Well, Irina Konstantinovna, did you find out who stole the money and disabled the cameras?" The woman looked up in surprise and gasped softly. She recognized Alexander immediately, or rather, she recognized him not by appearance, but by his voice, which with its intonation did not bode well. "Excuse me, Alexander Vladimirovich, I'll explain everything to you now. It was all this cleaning lady Vera. She saw how I damaged the power cable for the cameras. So, I decided to set her up. No, I could resist the temptation. Have mercy. Don't punish severely. Give me a chance to improve." But the businessman's conversation turned out to be exceptionally short. This is the sentence that should be applied to traitors and moles within the company's walls. On the same day, Irina was fired and Zaretsky personally went to Vera's house to ask for forgiveness and take her back to work. It turns out that Irina Konstantinovna worked on two fronts for a long time, transferring information from one company to another. There she received good money, which was used to pay for the entertainment of her young lover, whose passion was cards and other games of chance. In addition to the apology, Vera received other good news. Alexander Vladimirovich took her to the office, no longer as a cleaner, and offered her the position of trainee manager, giving the woman the chance she had always dreamed of. Of course, this did not mean at all that Vera would have an excellent business career, but no one doubted that she would acquire the necessary skills. Little Misha and Seryoza became friends and treated each other almost like brothers. The children had a lot to tell each other, as they both grew up in single-parent families and loved their mother and father with all their hearts. At the same time, unbeknownst to them, Vera and Alexander crossed the line that once separated boss and subordinate. The romance between the former cleaning lady and the director broke out so suddenly that it surprised both of them, providing the lovers with a full range of feelings and emotions. Romantic dates, warm evenings, and joint family picnics brought Sasha and Vera together so much that they made the only right decision and sealed their union with marriage. Looking at this happy couple, the registry office employees disputed among themselves the fact that happiness and a long life together awaits them. They are probably right, and therefore we can only rejoice for this beautiful couple in love and mentally wish the family boat a long and happy voyage.